Divisional round.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the divisional round of the NFC playoffs. I hope that intro has you ready to run through a brick wall. It took a lot of work, but I felt like, hey, the Vikings did their best to upset the Saints last week. I can do my part to put in the time to make a decent video. Possibly the last time I get a chance to do this this year for a Vikings preview, so I had to take that chance. The intro song is fittingly Survive by Muse. Great song. I love it. If you just fast forwarded through it, go back and watch it after this. Most of the footage that I used in that, illegally, I'm pretty sure, but hopefully they don't come after me because I don't make any money off of these whatsoever. It's just for fun because I'm a fan, and really, I'm helping them sell their product. I'm getting it out there. So the footage came from The Voyage on the Vikings website. Vikings.com and look for Voyage under their video stuff. It's really good. They're 10 to 20 minute long videos, and they kind of do what happened last week, what happens this week, interviewing the players between the games, doing the sideline kind of mic'd up audio. I love hearing that stuff. I love hearing what the players are saying during the game. So I didn't know about that until I heard Cy Amundsen and Paul Allen talking about it on KFan this week. So I checked it out, and the footage was so good I used it in the intro this week with a lot of editing. Okay, I've been talking for a long time without a beer. It's a big game this week, so I am drinking a big bottle. This is from Founders. I had their Imperial Stout or Imperial Chocolate Stout, something like that, the KBS Stout, weeks ago. And I was at the liquor store again looking for something to try, and I saw this. And this is their CBS Imperial Stout brewed with chocolate and coffee, aged in maple syrup bourbon barrels. Sign me up. Now, I've enjoyed a lot of dark beers this year, but I think it was this one that I compared to Motor Oil in terms of color, not taste. The taste was excellent, which is why I bought another one. Check that out. Like midnight black. Even if you hold it up to the light, it's just black. It smells excellent. Oh, it smells so rich. Skål för det. Oh my gosh. That is so good. I expected a little more maple. I'm kind of glad that it isn't there because I think maple would overpower a beer. But there's a hint of sweetness to it. Very rich. The chocolate is subtle, but definitely noticeable. I don't get so much of the coffee until the aftertaste. Then it's a little bit of that coffee bitterness, but it's excellent. Oh boy. You guys, I've been waiting all day for this. Actually, I bought it Tuesday. Yeah, still riding high on the victory against the Saints. I was like, I need to buy a big beer for this game. The whole time, this beer was sitting in the fridge calling my name. It was totally worth it. I'm going to have a hard time putting it down, but I'm going to do my best. Oh, I'm a happy man. Okay. So first, before we talk about this week's game, I'm going through the emotions I think most Vikings fans are. We made it to the playoffs for a reason, and there's stats that back that up. The Vikings, I believe, are the second in the league in terms of points allowed in the red zone, which came up huge against the Saints. Being able to shut them down in the red zone and keep them from scoring, even off of turnovers, huge. So while I believe the Vikings belong there, it wasn't really until they beat the Saints that I felt like the Vikings belonged in the playoffs. Because there's always that narrative about, well, they haven't beaten anybody with a winning record. Beating the Saints, who I thought were the most likely team to make it to the Super Bowl from the NFC, feels huge. Conversely, the Vikings have a very unhealthy relationship with the postseason, and just in my lifetime, they've gotten bounced in some pretty hideous ways. This year, I didn't think we were going to beat the Saints, so we're playing with house money, Vikings fans. I know, right after the game, several players were talking about how they didn't want to buy in to how awesome they were after beating the Saints, because that's what happened in 2017 when the Minneapolis Miracle happened. Then they went to Philadelphia and just got dismantled. So the things I'm thinking about that Saints game, while the Vikings were very good and the things they did on defense were creative, if you don't follow the Vikings real closely, Andrew Sendejo has been a career safety, and he was with the Vikings for quite a while. I want to say like 7 or 8 years. Was with the Eagles this year, or the Saints. I want to say the Eagles. They cut him. The Vikings picked him up, and they used him as the slot corner like the whole game. He shut down Michael Thomas. It's a position he doesn't play normally, and they used him there very effectively. They moved the 2 defensive ends, Everson Griffin and Danielle Hunter, inside to get pressure on Drew Brees because they saw that the Falcons did that very successfully. They took that and used it. Excellent coaching. The defense was so stout. It felt so good to see them like just frustrate the Saints. Offensively, they stalled out a couple times. They had things that were working, but then obviously towards the end of the game, it looks like the Saints had made adjustments to not allow the Vikings to have those stretch run plays and sweeps. I would have liked to have seen them mix it up a little bit more and not get so hung up. But then Cousins comes out slinging the deep ball, and everything was fine. I do want to take a moment, Vikings fans, share this with me. I always wondered what it would take for me to stop complaining and feeling like the Vikings are cursed or that nothing ever goes our way, because, and one season does not a curse remove, but it does seem like we had some things go our way. One thing that didn't go our way, they didn't call a false start on the Vikings, which would have negated the Thielen fumble, but whatever. Cook having his knee down before that fumble came out. Obviously, the one that everyone's talking about is the push-off, which, as a quick aside, if you really think that was a penalty, then you need to go back through the entire 2019 season and count up the hundreds of hand-fighting penalties that should have been called pass interference. I'm glad they didn't call it because that was consistent with the way they'd called it the whole year. The rule was put in place to challenge and overturn glaringly obvious pass interference. On that play, the defender wasn't playing the ball. He was tugging on Rudolph. Rudolph extended his arm. Yes, it was a push-off. It wasn't huge, but by the letter of the law, is it pass interference? Yes. Is it consistent with how they've called things, not just this year, but like forever? Yes. They made the right call. Having Will Lutz miss a field goal was huge. They converted that fake punt, and it got called back because of a false start penalty. Just things went our way. So keeping that in mind, there were a handful of plays that could have altered the outcome of that game. I will say the Vikings looked like the overall better team last week. Now, we have to break that all back down and start back over because today, and I can say today because it is 1:45 in the morning, today we are facing off against kind of our doppelganger, a 49ers team that loves to run the ball outside like the Vikings do. They have a big tight end that they love to target, and a quarterback that's kind of middling but accurate, prefers to do intermediate passing routes over the middle. I really think Garoppolo and Cousins have a lot in common. And funny enough, I believe it was the head coach Kyle Shanahan that wanted Kirk Cousins to come and be the quarterback in San Francisco, but the Vikings landed him, so they wound up with Garoppolo. Garoppolo's decent. I think honestly, like, one of the things I like about Kirk is that he, while putting too much pressure on himself, I think is pretty resilient to pressure in the pocket. And Garoppolo seems a little more rattled and more prone to make bad decisions, whereas Cousins, sometimes frustratingly so, takes the safest option and has corrected his fumbling problem. I think Garoppolo's thrown like double-digit interceptions and has, I want to say, like 10 fumbles also this year. So the Vikings getting pressure on him could generate some turnovers, which I think they're going to have to do to win today. The Vikings have had a really pretty decent run defense between Linval Joseph stuffing things in the middle and having really athletic linebackers, Anthony Barr, Eric Kendricks, and Eric Wilson, as well as hard tackling safeties, Harrison Smith, Anthony Harris, and even Xavier Rhodes is a really good tackling cornerback. What's tricky is, and the reason that Kyle Shanahan gets so much praise as this, whippersnapper, guru offensive mind, is because they are so good at using motion to throw other teams off. Another threat that they have is the fullback Kyle Juszczyk, who is kind of like a H-back, tight end, fullback hybrid, and they'll roll him out of the backfield. They'll use him in motion. There's just so many moving pieces that it's really tough to predict what is real, what's just to distract you, the Vikings are going to have to be on their game and staying in their positions and not biting on fakes. The 49ers backfield, which sounds more like a law firm of Mostert, Breda, and Coleman, has been splitting carries up pretty evenly. Mostert seems to be the lead back, but again, they seem to run like the Vikings, where they want to get outside stretch run plays, sweeps. They use their rookie wide receiver Deebo Samuel on a lot of jet sweeps and handoffs, kind of like the Vikings have been using Diggs lately. Honestly, they're two very similar teams, and it's going to come down, I think, to pressuring Garoppolo, controlling their run game, and keeping Kittle under wraps. On offense, I think a lot of people in the know are expecting Kyle Rudolph or Irv Smith to have a big game because the 49ers have been kind of beaten up by tight ends this year, but they're expecting to get back linebacker Jaquiski Tart, who has been phenomenal at stopping tight ends. So if he is back, maybe he's not 100% and we can keep using tight ends. If not, we're going to have to get more creative. I do think Diggs matches up well against their cornerbacks, Richard Sherman and Akella Witherspoon. They're bigger-bodied guys, and Sherman, who is coming off his Achilles tear and had a great year. Please, nobody mention this to him. I've seen what he does to people who doubt him on Twitter. He's had a great year, but Diggs is such a nimble and accurate route runner that I think he could give them fits. Of course, he did miss a lot of practice with illnesses this week, so hopefully it's not being sick of not getting the ball. If he is, maybe Cousins has the cure for him. Several deep touchdown routes. Thielen, meanwhile, got stitches, I think, on Wednesday on his ankle because he had a deep cut and is questionable to play today. I'm hoping he makes it. It's the playoffs. Tape that thing up. We could really use the help. There's so many angles and moving pieces to talk about in this game. I could honestly go on for an hour, but it is now 1 o'clock, and I need to get to bed so I can be alert for the game tomorrow and the coinciding party. I think it is going to be a very fast game in terms of runtime. Both teams are going to try to run the ball a whole bunch. I think the game will go quick. I do expect it to be very evenly matched, with a few big plays making the difference. But we saw how good the Vikings can be last week when you get your number 1 or 2 wide receiver back and your starting running back and your backup running back all together and healthy, going towards one goal. It was really fun to watch last week. We're playing with house money. I am on board. I have my expectations set right where they should be. It's always scary to truly believe as a Vikings fan because they know, and that's when they rip your heart out. So I don't truly believe the Vikings are going to go on some historical run here, but there's no reason they can't. I will have friends around me tomorrow to help, hopefully, keep me sane, win or lose. Either way, it's fun to have made it this far. Skål för det här. And go Vikings. Divisional round.